Hello.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good, good. And you?
I'm good. I'm good. For those joining us, this is Mr. Hamza Lawal. He's the founder of I Follow the Money.
I say when you call me
Oh,
Mr., it makes me feel old.
So I should just call you by your real name. No, Mr. It's a
Yeah,
habit. No problem.
cool.
So were
Are
you
you?
widely affected by the lockdown?
Well, yes, everyone is affected. I am affected because, well, we shut down our office. We can't do ground truthing and physically follow the money. So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. So I am not going to waste any time. I'll just get right to the question. Um, so question number one. Are you impressed with the effects of the Nigerian government in the way they've reacted to the COVID-19?
First, we must understand that no one was ready for COVID-19. The world powers and, of course, Nigeria was not ready. But I think we could have been better prepared because the outbreak was since in December, but our government actually dragged their feet to take decisive action. And in as much as the government set up a presidential task force, which is headed by Boss Mustafa, who is the secretary to the government, we're not really happy with their proactiveness because before now they were only giving incident reports. Even giving incident report, they were not giving us data of how many people they've tested, as the total number of people they've tested,
Right.
until we put a lot of pressure on them to give that data because it's important to know how many people have been tested, not just the people who tested positive or people who tested negative, and sadly people who had lost their life or people who are in isolation and in recovery. So with our campaign, they started giving that data. But of course, you would also see that they're not properly coordinated. In as much as you have some ministers on the presidential task force, there's lack of information sharing and there's a lot of secrecy. I don't know why, man, but they're keeping a lot of information, particularly financial information on how they're responding and how they're disbursing and utilizing public resources for public good.
Right. So have you noticed any gaps? If so, what are they? As
So,
an activist, of course.
mhm. Oh yes, we've noticed a lot of gaps. We wrote them a freedom of information request even before the lockdown. We wrote the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to say, give us data on the beneficiaries of this palliative and the beneficiaries, who governments are also providing conditional cash transfer. I call it conditional cash payment because if you see the clip, you see, heaps of money on the table and they're counting and distributing. There's lack of social distance being enforced, and it just seemed like a show, like a public show where, they're saying that poverty is sexist, showing faces of women. No, they're not. As much as people are poor, you must dignify them and they also have
Right.
rights and privileges. So we've seen a lot of gaps. And in some cases, government, again, there's that secrecy. Provide information, real-time information. There's a lot of money coming in. Follow the Money have mapped over 87 billion using public information on Twitter, on Facebook, on verified platforms that we call trusted sources. And we know that CACOVID, which is a private sector coalition, have mobilized over 27 billion and they have a target of over 45 to 50 billion. But they're sharing information. But the government, on the other hand, is not sharing detailed information. There was a time, and we need to also understand that as much as we're tackling COVID-19 pandemic, we're also tackling fake news. And lack of access to information is also tantamount to corruption. And without timely information, you're also empowering mischief makers to amplify and propagate fake news. So we've told government, there was a time that the fake news was circulating in social media and the Ministry of Finance debunked it and said, oh, we've just mobilized about 30 billion. But about 30 billion is not information. What is about 30 billion? Is it 30 billion? Is it over 30 billion? Is it close to 30 billion? Give us a definite figure. And
Right.
when you look at Nigeria's budget, there's nothing like about on the budget line. It's specific. It's either 1 trillion or it's either 500 billion. You know, there's a specific number. I'm not a
Right.
I'm not a professor of mathematics, but this is simple, you know, arithmetic. You know, it's either this or it's not it.
Right. I totally agree. So you run the campaign Follow the Money, of course. And amid this pandemic, a lot of people have donated to Nigeria, you know. So what have you found so far in terms of following the money?
So what we've found so far is, you know, both government, private individual and institution have donated towards this pandemic. And we've also seen that government is also providing some level of palliative, which some of our colleagues are tracking. But sadly, right now, Follow the Money cannot ground truth because there's lockdown. And of course, we're bound by the law, and we don't want to break the law because we're a law-abiding citizen.
Right.
But after the pandemic, hopefully when the lockdown is lifted, we're going to undertake a social audit to ground truth and then interview beneficiaries and understand the level of palliative that was provided by government. But you also know that some governors have come out publicly and said they're getting expired rights from government. You know, so there's that clash
Right.
between subnational government,
Right.
which is state government, and the federal government. You know, NAFDAC has also come in and said, you know, the rice that was taken to some states, we don't even have access to tell if these rice are expired or not. But the federal government is saying the rice are not expired, while the state
That,
government have showed pictures and videos that this rice cannot be consumed. It's poisonous. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting time to live.
that's very disappointing. Very disappointing. And I know that they were trying at one point. Nigeria is trying to ban imports. I
Mhm.
don't know. I'm not sure where the rice is from. Do you think that has something to do with it in terms of like imports?
We're not sure because there was this news that the government said the rice that were confiscated was poisonous, and now again, you know, the government told the custom to donate the rice that was seized for palliative.
Right.
So, but custom has said the rice that was confiscated were poisonous. Why would we now take this rice and donate to states to be distributed to poor people? So again, it's there's no clarity, there's no clear information on what's happening. But I know yes, there's a ban on importation of rice, and the last time we had from custom was this rice were poisonous for consumption. But I don't know why they also government is also saying custom give this rice to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to distribute to various states. It's crazy.
Right. Right. In addition to that, in terms of the palliatives, I've seen videos of, I think a governor or something donated gari to some people, and they threw it on the floor because they couldn't believe that, you know, he was donating that amount. Like, what do you have to say
Yeah.
about that?
Well, again, it shows that there's lack of transparency and accountability because when you hear, for instance, the governor of Edo State, he said he spent over 1 billion. The governor
Right.
of your state is saying he spent over 1 billion. But for what exactly? And when citizens are listening to radio, they're watching television and following updates on social media, and then when you distribute this, some people are getting one mudu of gari. What would one mudu of gari do to a family of five or seven? You
Imagine.
know, getting 2 cups of rice, you know, or getting, you know, this. So we saw this video by a local association who got two loaf of bread, you know, about 5 mudu of rice to share among about 30 members. How would they share this palliative? That was in Lagos State among themselves. So, you know, this lack of transparency and accountability and even getting update from government on specific, you know, give specific on what you've mobilized, what you've procured. And of course, we're also wary because one, we have procurement laws. In as much as this is a humanitarian and a health crisis, we must always follow the law. So we have procurement law. Nigeria is a signatory to the Open Government Partnership. So we're also asking governments, are you also ensuring that open contracting standards are being adhered to? Because there's going to be a lot of health procurement. There's going to be a lot of procurement of food items that will be distributed and will be distributed as palliative. What was this procurement process that was followed? Because we want to ensure that Nigerian money is spent to get the best outcome of it, so that we know, if we're getting value for money, not that people are inflating prices or people are, using this avenue to float the law.
Exactly. Exactly. Give me 1 second. Let me just put my charger on. Okay. Much better. Okay, great. So in terms of the isolation centers, I've seen photos of people not observing social distancing, not wearing any type of gloves, and or mask, or even PPE. And it's very disappointing because these are, dignitaries who are also telling the public you should observe social distancing. You should try to protect yourself. What do you have to say about that?
I think that, this also shows that our elites and our leaders make laws, but they don't also follow those laws. They're the first ones to break the laws. And if you look at even the spread of the virus, it's mostly the elites that have, spread this virus,
Right.
across the nation, because they said when you come back, self-isolate for 14 days. So a lot of them refuse to self-isolate, and now, we're dealing with this pandemic that have, affected a lot of people. So yeah, I've seen those clips too, where even in some of the isolation centers, there's not enough equipment, there's not enough health equipment, PPE, face mask, even ensuring that the environment is conducive for people who patients. It's quite hard. There was a state we got reports that for some of the patients to get water, drinking water, sometimes it takes 1 hour before they get water. I don't want to mention the name of the state, so it's crazy. And when you look at how much money they've allocated and they've utilized in setting up this isolation center, and how much money is going to providing consumables, health consumable and whatnot, and then what is obtainable on the ground. And that's why you see a lot of, and we've seen reports that people are running away or hiding, people
Right.
have gone in, so because the place is not conducive enough for inhabitation. Even health care workers, some of them are hiding and they're even migrating from their state, or they're just locking themselves at home because they don't want to put their life at risk, because they're not even getting enough health equipment to respond adequately to this virus.
It's every time I see the news or I watch the news, I'm very disappointed at I'm very disappointed at the rate at which people are dying and the lack of care that is taken. So what do you think Nigerians, excuse me, Nigeria or Nigerians should be doing at this moment as the government plan to what do you call it? Um, as the government tried to ease on the restrictions.
I think that as citizens, this is a collective fight, because obviously the government cannot do it alone, and they need
Right.
support, mass support from citizens. But I think citizens needs to also reflect and take a moment to think through what is governance, what is leadership, and what we're experiencing right now. Because when we go for elections and during campaign, a lot of people are carried away. This is a time for
Right.
leadership to step forward and lead from the front. This time of crisis shows that leadership is meant to ensure that they protect the collective interest of the people. So I think as a people we need to reflect and ask ourselves, what kind of leadership do we need in Nigeria? What kind of a democracy do we want in this country? And how can we inform? How can we inspire? And how can we take our country in our hands, and also take our destiny in our own hands, to ensure that in the near future we would not be subject to this kind of suffering, we would not be subject to this kind of lack of purpose or lack of responsiveness from government. But then again, I think there's also an opportunity here for government. As much as you're asking about what do citizens needs to do, government needs to also ensure that they build trust, because without public trust we can't achieve anything, because they need
Exactly.
public support. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Unless, of course, they buy the votes.
Again,
That's
that's what
another story.
citizens need to reflect, because if you sell your vote during election for 5,000 naira, what would 5,000 naira do for you? See, a lot of people who are now clamoring, oh, we've not gotten palliative. But during election, it was same, or some of you that queued to cast your vote and you sold your vote. So you sold your right to enjoying better service delivery. And so again, it connects. The way you vote also determine, one, if you stay alive for the next 4 years, because right now, government decide who actually die or who actually stays alive. If you get employed, how much you get paid, how much you get taxed. So it's everything encompassing. So you cannot abdicate your rights for 5,000 naira and think that everything will be fine, after after the elections. And come to think of it, for politicians, for corrupt politicians, it's economy for them. It's investment. So they're now recuperating the investment so that when we have another election season, they can bring this money. But citizens needs to wisen up and go and reflect and think through. Do we want to continue vote buying and vote selling? Or we want Nigeria that is equitable, Nigeria that does not discriminate, and Nigeria that ensures justice for everyone, both for the rich and the poor, particularly the poor that have no voice.
Right. Speaking of which, do you think Nigerians are waking up? Because over the weekend, I know Shori, he organized the pots and pans protests, I'm not sure. Do you think that was effective? Do you think Nigerians are waking up? What's your take?
I think Nigerians are waking up. I think it's effective. I saw even BBC picked up the pan and pan protest.
Pots and pans.
I think, yeah, I think pot and pan. I think Nigerians are waking up, but the speed at which will awaken is slow. One, you need to also consider that the level of illiteracy is high, the level of access to information or education is low. So a lot of people are docile, but I think that COVID-19 has sort of reset Nigeria, and it has reset everything, because COVID-19 does not discriminate. Even if you're a billionaire or if you're a poor person, it affects you. And hunger knows no religion. COVID-19 knows no religion. Hunger knows no ethnicity. COVID-19 knows no ethnicity. So I think people are now thinking through, okay, I think, I need to act more than what I'm doing. And of course, we've seen that technology has played a critical role, and we're more interconnected and more closer than even before.
Right. That's right. Thank God for technology. We won't be talking right now.
True.
So if you had the chance, what would you change in terms of the way COVID-19 has been handled in Nigeria? What would you change?
If I have the chance, I would open up the process where citizens can give feedback and also make contribution and make inputs. I would also ensure that I inform decisions based on data. Data in the sense that how much resources have we gotten, how much have we expended, and are we getting value for this money? Because transparency and accountability is key. If I get the chance, I would also ensure that Nigerians are they're aware and they're informed, particularly people at the grassroots. When COVID-19, when we first had the outbreak, a lot of people at the grassroots did not even believe, and some people were even saying this was an elitic problem, because they are disconnected from the reality of time, the reality of their country and leadership. So if I have, the chance, this is something I'll bring to the front burner and ensure that people take ownership on the fight against COVID-19.
Okay, amazing. You've already mentioned what you've observed in terms of the palliatives and the distribution, but as an activist yourself, of course, you have your platform that you're using to follow the money. I think the U.S. just volunteered over 200 ventilators. How do you feel about getting help from foreign countries?
I think that, this crisis, we also need solidarity, but everyone is looking inwards. Even the U.S., who's trying to support us with about 200 ventilators. If you look at the cases in the U.S., over 1 million people have been affected, over 50 million deaths, and, a lot of American citizens in Nigeria have been repatriated back to the U.S. Everyone is looking inwards. Everyone is first, fending for their own citizens. Like Donald Trump will say, America first. I think that Nigeria needs to also wake up and say, and our leaders need to say Nigeria first. We need to look inward. We need to tap into our creative industry. We need to tap into technology and innovation. We need to start looking at local content, local knowledge for national growth and development, where we don't have to wait for anyone to come and save us. And we need to also look at, rather than always importing and importing, we need to export as a country. Not that, we're just at the mercy of other developed nation. Nigeria needs to wake up, and not just wake up, but wake other African countries up, because Africa, should be a power block in world politics.
I agree. I totally agree. So in terms of the palliative distribution, do you think the government should be in charge, or do you think someone else should step in?
The thing is, we cannot abdicate the role of government and give it to private individual or private, entity. Of course, the government needs to take ownership. The government needs to show leadership and coordinate. But the government also needs to ensure civil society are there to monitor. The government needs to ensure that even the private sector plays a critical role. So yes, the government needs to be able to mobilize key stakeholders across board, even the media people, so that citizens are aware and informed, and we have access to all this knowledge and information and know firsthand what government is doing and how we can help or support them to achieve a common purpose and vision.
Okay, just to follow up on that, some states are obviously hit harder than others. Do you think they should receive more palliative as a result?
I think that we need to do away with states just folding their hands and waiting for federal government. I call our democracy or our governance as feeding bottle democracy, where governors will just fold their arms, they collect security votes, they collect FAC allocation. Now there's crisis, they want federal government to give them money, or federal government. No, we elected and state elected executive governors for a reason, to become chief executive of those states. So what have they been doing over the years? States also can have savings. How much have they saved and how are they using these resources? So state governments cannot just keep waiting. Everyone COVID-19 has affected everyone. Yes, some states it has affected it much more than other states, because Lagos State is an economic backbone of the country, and keeping people at home, has really affected income and affected, how Lagos State is able to respond. But,
right.
We cannot just sit and say, oh, give us money, give us money. And if you look at all these governors, most of them just want money from money donation. They're not even asking for in-kind support or technical assistance. They just want money, money, money. What have they done to increase their IGR and their savings?
Right. So as an activist, of course, do you think more people should step up, i.e. celebs should step up in terms of assisting the public?
Definitely, because these are influencers. These are people who have large following. So they also have, a role that beckons on their civic duty and civic responsibility to influence, to shape narrative and shape conversation and mobilize their audience and their followership. I think celebrity, beyond posting on Instagram and social media about what's trendy, they need to also inform, engage, and bring about social change, as it affects everyone. Because right now, be you celebrity or be you an ordinary person, COVID-19 affects all of us,
That's right.
equally. So yes, they have a critical role to play.
All right. So what's next for you?
Well, we'll continue following the money because and holding government to account. Government must respond to our freedom of information request. As for us is to ensure that I think I just lost audio. I can't hear you.
So I can hear you. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes. So I say for us is to continue following the money to mobilize more young people to use technology tools, particularly this moment that we're all at home. Let's use our data. Let's use our smartphone, even if we know that internet is very expensive in this part of the world and is relatively slow and frustrating. But we must use this to ensure our voices are heard. And now more than ever before.
Amazing. So what message do you have for the Nigerian government, if you have any?
Uh, Nigerian government, you need to step up your game and ensure that you're able to unite this country now that COVID-19 has sort of flattened the curve. You need to also build public trust and ensure that you adhere to transparency and accountability. President Muhammadu Buhari was elected into office with the campaign that he was going to tackle corruption. And what we're seeing right now does not, abide by those principles. We must ensure integrity, we must ensure transparency, and do away with secrecy in governance.
Okay, amazing. And what message do you have for the public?
This is a fight for all. The Nigerian people must also play their role because as we play our individual role, it's interconnected and it's going to make Nigeria rise to the occasion and come out of COVID-19. I believe that we can beat COVID-19, but to do that, we must unite our voice. We must hold government to account. But in holding government to account, we must hold ourselves to account and also ensure that we adhere to the rule of law.
I agree. I agree. So in terms of COVID, did you know anyone who was personally affected?
Yes, my friend who's the founder of Stand to End Rape. Yeah, she was affected, but she has recovered and have been discharged, so she's a COVID-19 survivor.
Okay.
Very passionate,
Amazing.
yeah, amazing, yeah.
Amazing. All right. Thank you so much. Do you have anything else to share with our audience?
Join us on ifollowthemoney.org, where we'll be sharing real-time information. Follow the COVID-19 Money is not just a campaign in Nigeria, it's a Pan-African campaign in other 7 countries, where we're aggregating data, building mass mobilization of citizens taking action. So use the hashtag, follow COVID-19 because that's the only tool we have now that we're not socializing.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, can you repeat what you just said?
I said I'm calling on the general public and citizens to use their smartphones to get information. Be wary of fake news because fake news is out there. Join our platform, ifollowthemoney.org. Follow our hashtag, follow COVID-19 money, because this is not just a Nigerian campaign, though it's a Nigerian homegrown campaign that started in Nigeria, now Pan-African, where young people are using their smartphone, and technology have now brought us closer. Rather than just, sitting at home and doing nothing, use your smartphone to get your voices heard and join your voice for the fight against COVID-19 in Nigeria and Africa at large.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Please stay safe. Of course.
Yes.
Have a good day.
Wash your hands. Yeah. Yeah. Bye-bye now.
Exactly. All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.